Top 10 most gruesome yet defining events in ancient history. From ancient civilizations to the dawn of humanity, history has many fascinating and gruesome tales to tell. These stories have shaped the way we live today, and have often been the source of much debate and discussion. From the Great Flood to the rise and fall of empires, these events are some of the most important and defining moments of human history. So, without further ado, let's take a look at the top 10 gruesome yet defining events in ancient history that you should know about. Number 10. The Mongol invasion of Japan. The Mongol invasions of Japan took place in 1274 and 1281 CE when Kublai Khan (1260–1294 CE) sent two huge fleets from Korea and China. In both cases, the Japanese, and especially the samurai warriors, vigorously defended their shores, but it would be typhoon storms and the so-called kamikaze or divine winds which sank and drowned countless ships and men, thus saving Japan from foreign conquest. The Mongolians made their first assault on Japanese territory in 1274. This was not only the first invasion attempt by the Mongols, it was also the last major exploit of the Mongol Empire. After Kublai Khan's death in 1290, the empire fractured and was eventually dissolved under the pressure of internal revolts and the rise of the Ming dynasty in China. Number 9. The Plague of Athens. The Plague of Athens was an epidemic that devastated the city-state of Athens in ancient Greece during the second year 430 BC of the Peloponnesian War. Killing nearly a third of the population, an epidemic ripped through Athens in 430 BC. Historic accounts and new technology are helping to shed light on the mysterious illness which struck the city-state. Many causes for the Athens plague have been proposed by modern scholars and medical experts, including typhus, smallpox, typhoid fever, measles, and even bubonic plague. The disease, largely believed by modern scholars to have been either typhus or typhoid, even killed the great Athenian general and statesman, Pericles. Number 8. The fall of the Inca Empire. The fall of the Inca Empire is one of the most fascinating stories of ancient history. It was the fall of one of the most powerful and technologically advanced empires in the world. It had been ruled by the Inca people, who had built a civilization that had flourished in the Andes Mountains in modern-day South America. The Inca Empire had been a highly advanced civilization that had made many discoveries and inventions. However, the Inca Empire had been conquered and brought to an end by another great empire. The Spanish Empire had arrived in South America, and they had begun a conquest of the continent that had ended with the fall of the Inca Empire. The Spanish had begun to conquer different tribes and kingdoms, and they had eventually come to the Inca Empire. After a long and brutal battle, the Spanish had managed to conquer the Inca Empire and bring an end to one of the great empires in history. Number 7. The rise of the Aztec Empire. The rise of the Aztec Empire is one of the most interesting and gruesome tales of ancient history. It was an empire that existed in what is now Mexico, and it was ruled by the powerful and ruthless Aztec people. The Aztec Empire had been growing in power and strength, and it had fought many wars and battles with neighboring tribes and kingdoms. Many of the neighboring tribes had been decimated by the Aztec army, and they had been reduced to tributary states of the Aztec Empire. The Aztec Empire had been ruled by a powerful and ruthless ruler known as Moctezuma, who had been known for his cruelty and ruthlessness. The Aztec Empire had been a defining moment in ancient history, and it had left behind many gruesome tales of its cruelty. The Aztec Empire had also been responsible for one of the most fascinating stories in ancient history, the arrival of the Spanish conquistadors. Number 6. The conquests of Genghis Khan. The conquests of Genghis Khan have been described as the most savage and ruthless in human history. He was a Mongolian warlord who was the ruler of a nomadic tribal horde. The Mongol Empire had expanded to become one of the largest and most powerful empires in history, and had even managed to rule a large portion of Asia and Eastern Europe. The Mongolian hordes had also managed to sack and destroy many cities and civilizations, including the Chinese Jin dynasty and the Islamic Abbasid Caliphate. The Mongolian Empire had eventually fractured into several different states, and after the death of the Khan, it had been divided between his three sons. The Mongolian conquests are some of the most gruesome and defining moments of ancient history, and they have been the inspiration for many books, films, and TV series, such as the Netflix series, Marco Polo. Number 5. The Siege of Carthage. The Siege of Carthage is one of the most famous stories of the ancient world. It is first mentioned in the Roman historian Livy's book, The History of Rome, and it tells the gruesome tale of the siege and destruction of the city of Carthage. Carthage was a powerful and wealthy city that was situated in modern-day Tunisia. The city had been growing in strength and power, and it had been a threat to the Roman Empire. The Romans, led by the famous general Scipio, had decided to end the threat of Carthage, and they had besieged the city. The Siege of Carthage is one of the most gruesome events in ancient history, as it had ended in the complete destruction of the city, and the deaths of thousands of its citizens. The Romans had eventually broken into the city, and had slaughtered its inhabitants. The Romans then razed the city to the ground, and it was never rebuilt. The Siege of Carthage was a defining moment in ancient history, and it is often considered to be one of the most important events in the fall of the Roman Empire. Number 4. Alexander the Great's conquest. The conquests of Alexander the Great are some of the most fascinating and gruesome tales of ancient history. Alexander was a ruler of the ancient Greek kingdom of Macedon, and he is often considered to be one of the greatest military commanders in history. Alexander began his military campaign at the age of 20, and by the time he died, he had managed to conquer the entire Mediterranean region. His conquests had a profound impact on the ancient world, and his legacy has survived to this day. During his lengthy military campaign, Alexander also managed to meet many different cultures and people, and his conquests also saw him bring Hellenistic culture and language to many different civilizations. His discoveries and conquests helped to shape the history of the ancient world, and have even played a significant role in modern history. Number 3. The assassination of Julius Caesar. The assassination of Julius Caesar has been the subject of many books and films. It is one of the most famous and defining moments in ancient history, and historians have long debated the details of the assassination. Caesar was the ruler of the Roman Empire, and had recently returned from a lengthy stay in Egypt, where he had been involved in negotiations with the pharaoh. After his return, Caesar was involved in a civil war against his old friend and ally, Brutus. Caesar eventually won the war, and was due to be elected as ruler for life. Caesar's death caused a series of events that led to the fall of the Roman Empire, and his death is still considered to be one of the most important moments in ancient history. Number 2. The fall of the Roman Empire. The fall of the Roman Empire is one of the most important and defining moments in ancient history. It was one of the bloodiest times in human history, and although we have many different beliefs and theories about the fall of the Roman Empire, the exact details are still unknown. As the Roman Empire began to decline, it was invaded by Germanic tribes such as the Goths, the Huns, and the Vandals. This invasion is believed to have been the reason behind the fall of the Roman Empire, and brought an end to the Pax Romana, or Roman peace, which had existed since the rule of Augustus. The fall of the Roman Empire was a defining moment in ancient history, and it changed the way we live today. It allowed nations and tribes throughout Europe to grow and flourish, and the effects of this can be seen to this day through the many different cultures and languages that exist on the continent. And lastly, number 1. The Great Flood. The Great Flood is one of the most famous stories from ancient history. It is first mentioned in the book of Genesis, where it is told that God had sent a massive flood to punish humanity for their sins. The story of the Great Flood is also believed to have shaped the formation of many ancient civilizations. The civilizations that were believed to have been formed after the Great Flood include the Mesopotamian civilization, the Indus Valley civilization, and the civilization of the Nile River. Thank you for watching. Please don't forget to like, share and subscribe for more exciting and amazing videos.